People of Reddit, have you ever killed anyone? If so, what were the circumstances? Not me, but my dad. It was 1977. His best friend was riding in the back of his truck. He was 17 or so. They were driving through the downtown area of Richmond. They hit a bump in the road and my dad's friend bounced out, landed on his head, broke his neck. Dad held him while he died. This is how my friend killed my best friend and his girlfriend. 6 years later I still miss him so much. Throwaway for obvious reasons. When I was 12, I was babysitting for a family in my subdivision. There were 2 little girls, 3 and 6, and a 5-month-old baby. I had experience babysitting, but wasn't great with babies. I was real nervous and not the most responsible adult kid anyway. The girls were sitting on the living room floor reading, and the baby started crying from her crib. I picked her up and took her into the kitchen to warm up a milk bottle in the microwave. I simply dropped her. I have been over this 1,000 times in my head and there is no other way I can explain it. I dropped her and her head hit the tile floor. She was very clearly dead immediately. The weirdest part is how calm I felt, like I turned into a robot. I told the girls to go to the basement immediately and called my dad and told him what happened. Then I sat at the kitchen table for 10 minutes while he came over. He drove the girls to our house to be with my mom, then drove me and the body to the hospital. Obviously nothing could be done. I was not charged because it was ruled an accidental death. There was a chance I could have been charged with criminally negligent manslaughter but was not, in part because of my age. This was several decades ago and I still feel it every day. I am a woman and do not think I can ever have children because of it. The family moved but until they did, I had to throw up every time I drove past their house or saw one of them in the community. This is exactly why I'm afraid to hold babies. When I was 21, a young man was killed because he was walking along the side of a highway drunk, 4 times over the legal limit, and I hit him with my car. It was at night and I didn't see him until my car hit him. He hit the hood and windshield, then flew over the car onto the highway. He was dead on impact. I had no alcohol that night and his family could not press charges because of his blood alcohol content. I've used this throwaway before to answer questions like this one. It was actually 2 guys, home invasion, but I shot both of them with my AR-15. One guy 3 times, the other guy 4 times, Novisk, loaded with 75 grams on a D-tap. It was about 3 AM but I was still up trying to get some work done for the next day. I heard the sound of broken glass hitting the wooden floor in my living room and knew something was wrong immediately. My girlfriend and my dog were both asleep in the room with my niece and nephew were asleep in the room across the hall. I was watching them for the weekend. I woke my girlfriend quietly and told her to stay quiet and call 911. I had my carry gun still on me from earlier that day but I decided to grab my rifle. I could hear the crunch of the broken glass under the feet of the guys downstairs. Had it just been my girlfriend and me in the house at the time I would have stayed put in the bedroom but with my niece and nephew across the hall I didn't want anyone coming upstairs. I positioned myself at the top of the stairs and stayed quiet, hoping they'd just take my TV and games consoles from the living room and leave. After about a minute or 2 both of them moved into the downstairs hallway and started heading towards the stairs. I stood up to where they could see me, pointed my rifle at them and yelled at them to get the frick out of my house. Before I even finished saying it one of them raised his pistol and started shooting at me. I didn't see him draw so he must have had it in his hand and I didn't notice it. I returned fire and hit both of them several times. Once both guys were down I just kept my rifle on them and didn't move. I fired 12 shots with 7 hits. They fired 6 shots at me but they all missed. 2 bullets were recovered from the bookcase I was standing behind. The police arrived about 10 minutes later. When I saw the lights outside I lowered my rifle, cleared it and leaned it against the wall. I also took off my carry gun and left it beside my rifle. I don't regret what I did in the least. I do look back at it though and think about how I made some stupid mistakes. I should have noticed the guy had a gun in his hand immediately and I should have been quicker on the trigger. I let them get the first shot off. If I'd been hit things could have gone very differently. When I was 17, I still only had my learner's permit to drive. I was driving back from a doctor's appointment with my mom. It was already completely dark out, about 9:30. but I was doing everything right. I had my lights on, turned off the radio, was doing the speed limit, and was not talking on my cell phone or anything. Seemingly, out of nowhere, a young boy ran out into the street. I slammed on my brakes as hard as I could, but I had already hit him. He rolled off of my windshield. I was in shock. The first thing I did was pull over, put the car in park, and got out of the car. I see all the cars around me stopped and the boy's body lying in the middle of the street. I didn't know what to do. My legs wouldn't work and the only thing I could do was cry and scream. A man was trying to resuscitate him, but to no avail. Within minutes, ambulances and police cars were everywhere. All the commotion wasn't even the worst part. The worst part was when the boy's father came out and saw his son on the ground and dropped to his knees, crying and screaming. I was shaking violently and couldn't really keep myself together. The police told me to wait in the car with my mom while they tried to get the boy back. All I could think of was, please don't be dead. Please don't be dead. I soon learned that the ambulance drove him to a nearby high school where a helicopter flew him to the hospital. I learned the next day that he died on the way there. His name was Elijah and he was only 9 years old, 2 years younger than my brother. I was very fortunate to not be charged with anything and I had no points on my license when I got it. I never spoke with the father, but had read in the paper that he lost his wife just 3 months prior to my accident. I felt like the worst person in the world. I hated myself. I could barely sleep. I didn't want to eat. And I couldn't smile for weeks. About a month later, my mom and I were driving to the same doctor that I had been leaving on the day of the accident. The road on which the accident happened was unavoidable, and I saw his vigil on the side of the road. He was such a normal kid. He liked football and cartoons, and he was very smart. It took a long time for me to stop blaming myself and accept the fact that it was an unfortunate fluke. This happened about 4 years ago and I still think of it from time to time. I still feel guilty and it's a dark part of my past that I don't like to talk about. But a few years ago, during the summer, I was at the beach with my family and I was sitting in the water when a little boy, about 2-3 years old, came up to me. He said hi and started splashing me. When I realized he wasn't with anyone, I got scared that he was lost. Just then, a woman came running over, shouting, "Elijah, Elijah. Oh, thank God, you found my son. Thank you." She picked him up and he waved goodbye to me as she walked away. I get the chills every time I tell that story. I got the chills when I read it. As awful as the situation was, don't beat yourself up about it. It would have happened the same way had anyone else been going down that street at the same second. Was with my girlfriend in Chicago at Navy Pier. It was my first time in Chicago. We stayed at Navy Pier until evening then walked back to the car. I had just bought a brand new '06 Impala. A guy shoved me into the car and as I spun around he pushed a gun at me. I've had a few self-defense classes and did some karate in middle school. I grabbed for the gun and put my finger behind the trigger so it couldn't be pulled, and as the guy was struggling to get it away from me I had overpowered him and we had our chests together fighting for position. I knew the gun was pointed away and the guy went for my face. I let go of the hand holding the trigger and the gun went off into the guy's chest. I was mostly stunned after that happened, thinking I was hit. My girlfriend was in the car with the doors locked and had called the police. They showed up about 2 minutes after the gunshot. Felt like a lifetime. Police took my statement and the statement of my girlfriend. It was determined self-defense. I actually didn't tell anyone in my family about it until last year. Throwaway obviously. Let's go back almost 4 years. Early 2009. I was 2 months into being 17. I was a safe drive. Speed limit. Not texting. Seatbelt. Hands at 10 and 2. Followed all the rules. The McDonald's in my town was closed, so with me driving my SUV, my friend and I headed down to the one in the next town while we waited for a friend to get off work so we could all go to the movies. When you hit a red or green light in town, you catch every single one for miles. Cool. We got all green lights. It was slightly rainy, but the conditions weren't too bad, yet I was still going 5 under the speed limit, which was 50. I'm going through this one light. On my right was a car dealership, but on the other side there was a shopping center, so there was a huge shadow cast in my side. I'm in the middle lane. A few cars not too close behind me. No one in front of me for a few stoplights. I'm pulling through a green light and I'm almost to the other side of the intersection when I see this weird glare and realize what I'm looking at. And my friend instantaneously yells, "Oh crap, it's a person," and instantaneously I slammed on my brakes and pulled over. I just hit a freaking woman. She was wearing all black, at night, walking across an intersection where not only did she have a red light but also was not even a freaking crosswalk. I froze. I honestly don't even think I put the car I park after what seemed like a lifetime. I looked over and saw the woman at the median. At the same time, my friend grabbed one of our phones to call the police and our parents. I never wanted to die more in my life. I wanted to get out of my car and stand in traffic. I didn't think I could live with it. I tried to get out of my car, but my bent fender was preventing me from opening the drive's door without the help of a big butt Russian police officer. I don't know how I ever got through it. I'm pretty good now. I get down now and then, flashbacks sometimes, but that comes with PTSD. It sucks, but I am so freaking lucky to have such a great support system with my friends. Well, that's all, I guess. Have an awesome rest of the weekend, everyone. I know this has probably been said by your support, but you did nothing unreasonable and are far from directly blameworthy for that woman's death. The short and unsweet. A homeless looking guy came up to my car while I was waiting on a light and asked for a few dollars. I crack my window a couple of inches to talk to him and he sticks a pistol through the crack. I pin his hand against the window with the gun pointing downwards. He lets go, yanks his hand out and starts beating on the window. I panic, rack the gun, just to be sure there was something in the chamber, and shoot through my window. I hit him somewhere in center mass and he died on the way to the hospital. I probably could have just driven away and called 911, but I panicked instead. I was out having drinks with some friends several years ago. Somehow the topic of car accidents came up. One of the guys in our group said he killed 2 people in a car accident 4 years prior, but the way he said it was so nonchalant, I honestly thought he was joking. But then another person who knew him better than I said, "Oh yay, I forgot about that." So I asked him if he would be willing to elaborate. He said that he had been driving home after a long day of work and the sun had already set and it was drizzling outside. Nothing too bad. Then he started to fall asleep and lost control of the car, went into the opposing lanes and slammed into a car, killing a young couple. The police did an investigation and chalked it up to simple loss of control due to the weather conditions at the time. He never told the police that he had dozed off. He got charged with involuntary manslaughter and had to do community service. I guess it was the way he told the story to me while at a bar with friends that made it sound so like, well, crap happens. I don't know if telling the cops he fell asleep would affect the outcome at all in terms of punishment, but I did later find out from another friend that he learned to come to terms with it. I guess at one point he considered killing himself. I do know that after the trial process, the family reached out to him to let him know that they forgave him, but the fact that he lied made it feel worse. Before I was born, my dad, while working for his parents' landscaping business, was driving a dump truck. He was getting onto the highway via an on-ramp when the hood of the truck popped open, blocking his view completely. Being relatively young, in his early 20s, he panicked and decided to make his way over to the shoulder. Unbeknownst to him, a man was also on the shoulder fetching his spare tire from his trunk to change a flat. My dad ended up hitting the man and killing him on impact. The impact was so hard that some of the man's teeth were found embedded in the floor of the trunk. An investigation followed and my dad was cleared of any charges because a malfunction was found in the lever keeping the hood secured. Crashed into pole while drunk driving. Girlfriend died on impact. I flew out the driver's side window. 19-year, lifetime guilt. I fought in Afghanistan. I personally killed people. My bullets killed them. But I'm not here to talk about them. I don't talk about this. So this is a first to anyone other than those who were there with me. We were ambushed by Taliban forces, which is nothing out of the ordinary. I ended up shooting an insurgent in the neck. After the fight we investigated the aftermath. Normally they retrieve their dead and wounded during the fight so we can't get an accurate idea of their numbers. They left some behind. I walked over to the insurgent, and he was still alive. He was a kid no more than 13 years old, choking on his own blood. He looked me in the eyes as I stood there, There was no malice in his eyes, no grit or hatred, only fair. He fought us, but he was a terrified little kid. We couldn't save him in time. He died. I will always remember the look in his eyes. I feel better having shared this. We, my fire team, killed a 10-year-old who was directing mortar fire. That was a bad day. I like to play a little game called Find the Murderer. It's just a little something I do to stay paranoid about everyone around me. OP. I bet he's res tagging all of these people so he can be nicer to them in other threads. When I was 16 I was really into throwing knives. I was dang good at throwing them too. One night when my parents were out of town for a week I heard my front door unlock around 12 o'clock. It has a 3-bolt locking mechanism that's loud when it gets unlocked and I forgot to bring in the spare key, and I immediately grabbed my knives which were on my nightstand. I had 5 super sharp double-edged knives. I watched a guy walk towards my little brother's room. He was 7 and my best friend in the world and nothing was going to ever hurt him as long as I could help it. I threw all 5 of knives at him. 4 hit him in the back and 1 at his neck. He dropped to the floor and died. I got my brother and took him to my room and called my parents and 911. When the police got there they were surprised that I hit him with all 5 knives. It was written off as self-defense. I feel absolutely no guilt or have any bad feelings about killing him and I would do it a million times over if I had to. I did what I had to do to protect my brother and that's all that matters. In my eyes he deserved to die. That was 2 years ago and I think about it all the time. Throwaway here. Yes, I have killed more than one person. Context: Operation Iraqi Freedom, late 2003, Baghdad. 2 of them were shooting at me, so I returned fire. The last one was collateral damage after an IED exploded, and I ran the guy over while I was escaping the kill zone. In the end, I've only fired my weapon in combat twice, and it only took me 2 shots. I feel the most remorse for the innocent who was in the way of me and my men. Would you guess me in your game? I'm an English instructor at a Midwestern community college, married with 4 children, a puggle, and a cat. My family and I live in an old farmhouse on an acreage in the middle of corn country. This is not myself but through my uncle who served in Vietnam and later served in the New York City Police Department. I served as a sniper in Vietnam. In the time that I was there, I killed from 6 to 9 people. That's a rough estimate because sometimes you just couldn't tell if it was a kill or not. I feel bad about it, but I understood that I needed to do it. I don't know if it's like this for everybody that's ever killed someone, but when you do and every time you do, it takes something from you. It's not really something I've ever been able to explain effectively. After coming home, I joined the NYPD. I was a beat cop and I worked 42nd and Broadway for most of my career. In 1979, myself and another officer witnessed an assault robbery in progress. After drawing our guns and telling the attacker to get on the ground, he drew a knife from his coat and charged us, so we opened fire on him. He was pronounced dead at the scene. At the time, I don't know how it is now, if you killed somebody while on duty, you had to take a temporary leave. 2 weeks after I came back to work, I was walking to my car to go home at around 2 AM. From across the street, a man begins to approach me while pulling a knife from his coat. I pull out my badge and my gun and inform him that I'm a police officer. He doesn't stop. I say it again and at this point I am desperate for him to stop because I really don't want to shoot him. He doesn't stop. At about 5 feet, I shoot him in the torso twice. He ended up surviving, which I am thankful for because I've killed so many people. I really don't think that I could handle doing it again. As a question for everybody posting in this thread who has killed somebody, who have you told, aside from Reddit? How do people who know handle the news? I expected this thread to have less accidental killing and more actual murder, with malice. Is there anyone who was involved with the mafia, or a gang, and had to kill someone? Because a professional hitman for the mob would post on Reddit. Killed my stepdad when I was 14. We got in a fight and I stabbed him a few times. They attempted to try me as an adult for first-degree murder but the grand jury no-billed it. In all likelihood yes. Very large fight in Fallujah at nearly 200 meters, but between the long distance and general chaos I certainly wasn't counting. Same story, different city, Baghdad. Fairly certain I killed a couple people but can never be 100%. Not people, but I killed 3 parakeets when I was a kid by being absolutely retarded and forgetting to feed them. It really messed me up. For years I used every birthday wish, shooting star, and prayer asking for those birds to come back to life. I daydreamed in school that they were there with me and no one else could see them, and I would talk to them in my head. I used to have to go to the bathroom and bawl my eyes out and say I'm sorry over and over to my imaginary dead birds. It seriously fricked with me. I couldn't stop thinking about them. They were just goddamn parakeets, but the fact that they died because of me is my biggest freaking regret in life, and if I ever accidentally kill a human being because of my carelessness, I don't know how I would cope with that, given how I barely was able to deal with this. I killed a kitten. It climbed under the recliner. I got in the recliner and began to rock. I don't remember if I knew she was there or not. I was 6. I really can't believe I killed something so innocent. I still remember her white fur and blue eyes. It's not anything compared to a lot of what other people have said, but I still feel like the biggest scumbag on earth. I freak out every time I close the footrest on my recliner and tell everyone to animal check. This story compounds a fear I've had for a long time after getting a shoe caught under there. The results to the shoe are terrifying now. If that had been my dog, Chihuahua, I'm sure he'd be a goner. A kid who went to my school 2 years ago thought it would be cool to try to drift around a corner coming back from tech, when he lost control and ran an old lady over and killed her. He had already been accepted into a really good college and got that taken away, and he was put into jail for about a year. I don't really know what he is doing now, but our school doesn't allow us to drive to tech anymore either. I'm a paramedic. This is a co-worker's story from about 2 years ago. They were dispatched to a section of highway underneath an overpass where a man was threatening to commit suicide. Through some miscommunication, they were sent to the overpass 1 exit past where they should have stopped. As they were passing the overpass where the potential patient was, the man jumped and was run over by the fire department and our ambulance. When I was young, my buddy and I would walk the streets at night raising heck and otherwise being rebellious. A gang of about 5 or 6 jumps us and takes our backpacks and valuables. Fast forward a week and a kid a grade ahead comes up to us and asks us for $500 for our stuff back. We declined because the stuff we had was mostly stolen anyways. The next day, while I'm tending to my chores in the backyard of my grandparents' house, the same kid shows up with our bags and tells me we have until the end of the weekend. I tell him I can meet him behind my old middle school in the large drainage ditch with the money, but I would need an extra day or 2 just to stall him and try and figure something out and to get him away. He agreed, to my surprise, so I told my friend. We weren't sure how this would go and were sure that there would be a whole bunch of guys waiting to rob us and not give us our stuff back. So we got all the fireworks and flammable crap we could find and loaded a lunchbox full of it. We made sure everything was packed in it well, cut a small hole in it and pulled intertwined fuses out of it. On the night of the meetup, we were scared of what might happen. We lucked out and the kid showed up by himself. He had our crap and kept his promise. While I grabbed our bags and I thanked the guy for being cool about it, my friend lit the fuses and tossed him the lunchbox. We got the heck out of there and heard the box go off and a scream that frightened the both of us. We never heard from the kid again or from his friends, nor do either of us know what happened. It was the same week wildfires took our neighborhood. We never looked back or wanted to. Our bags were full of dog crap in plastic bags, so I don't really care much about what happened either. That's some hooded crap. Serbia, Kosovo. They told us Albanians were killing civilians. We had to go in and protect them. So many dead. Men, women, children. I had just turned 19. I am 22 now. I haven't felt regret. I haven't felt guilt. I haven't felt anything. I can't hold a relationship. I don't see my family. How could I? They are just things. Husks. Sometimes I wish I could kill myself. My dad grew up during the Lebanese Civil War and was part of a very violent militia. Although he never really speaks about it, he admits to killing people, and based on stories from the group he fought with, they did some crazy stuff. This happened a couple years before I was born, but it's really weird to think about it. I've never killed anyone. Directly, I've been the deciding factor on whether or not teams get sent to places or bomb get dropped on people. I don't really like to think about it, but of course I do. I've got a thing for numbers. At least 47 people have died by my word this year alone. I feel terrible. Look at it this way. Someone will do your job, and I'm sure the people on the ground would appreciate that the person sending them into battle actually gives a crap if they live or die. Not a throwaway account. Come at me bro. I never killed a person, but I had a girlfriend commit suicide on my watch. It damaged me for years, so much so that I still have trouble in relationships. In her goodbye note she said it wasn't my fault, that she just was tired of life and that if anything I made her stick around a few years longer. As you can guess, that didn't really help. It's been almost 10 years, but I don't know how to describe how it feels even now. It's like a part of me died with her. I kept moving, doing everything I'm supposed to do, even dating, but still, there's some crap that's impossible to bounce back from completely, you know? If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.